welcome Faith and Adam.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back. It's always reassuring when you come back from the breakouts, and great to reconnect with you. Faith, as Bias was saying, we're going to have a conversation together. I'd really like it to be between you and I. Imagine this is in a doctor's surgery.
A therapist.
A therapist, okay, a therapist. And we're going to have a very close and personal discussion together. And there's a whole range of about 320 junior doctors who just so happen to be there. And they're going to be listening in. But it's between you and I in the room. And one of the things that's most interesting about the conversation that we're going to have is that we're going to be talking about feminine intelligence in the digital age. When I came into the room this morning, I looked around the room and asked our team to just confirm for me. Would it surprise you to know that there are 57% of our room today are Geshidoners, and 43% are Geshidons, using our proper noun that we've established. I have been told, by the way, by the vocabulary experts in the corner that that's not in line with their thinking. They've got some sort of Japanese terminology they want us to use. But that's interesting to start off with, Faith. That, does it surprise you that we've got more women in the audience at the Geshidocon than men?
So, good afternoon, everyone. Adam, no, it actually doesn't surprise me. I think that there are a lot of women in IT. What is still not happening, in my opinion, is that on very senior levels, you don't find the same representation. So if I may use the example, we had an executive CIO breakfast this morning, and in the room there was about 15 or so of us, and of the 15, only 6 were women. And so as much as you find a significant amount of women within the IT industry and within various industries, as you go higher into the hierarchy of an organization, there are still too few women on C-level.
Right, so there's clearly a challenge in terms of making one's way to the top of the organization, as indicated by the CIO breakfast that took place this morning. My wife, by the way, often puts cushions all around the house, and I find myself having to remove them.
And I'm very comfortable on it.
You're very comfortable. Well, there you are. So there's a particular difference there. But maybe let's start off on the subject of feminine intelligence. What exactly is that?
So for me, to define it, I think we need to start with what it's not. What it's not is it's not gender exclusive. So all of us, I think, have feminine and masculine energy. What it is, and simply put, it's when you put people at the center of your leadership style. So if you're bringing feminine energy into your leadership style, whether you're male or female, whether you identify as male or female, or any other non-binary, but when you bring that feminine energy in, you are actually bringing the people at the center. And I read in, I think, the Journal of Psychology, they talk about the characteristics of feminine energy. And those are empathy, collaboration, intuition, inclusivity. And many of us actually show a little bit more masculine energy when it comes to inclusivity. Then flexibility. And I said empathy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we start to think then about what it is it not, would you say? Are there clear indicators in your mind?
It's not control. It's not a focus on hierarchy.
Okay.
It's not a boy or girls club or clique, because that's not feminine energy. That is probably the negative part of some of the masculine energy that we do see. And we've seen, I've seen a study that says men who actually exhibit masculine and feminine energy, both of
Okay.
that, they actually have higher job satisfaction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. And what's particularly interesting, I think, if we think then more broadly about the subject in the digital age, have you ever coded?
I did. My first job was, I was an assistant programmer. Okay, so I started at 5. Because it shows my age, I'm certified in COBOL programming.
I think I remember.
I
can
was
remember.
5 when I started.
Right.
That's feminine energy.
Perhaps I can ask the audience to give me a show of hands. How many of our delegates, our Geshidons and Geshidoners, have coded? Would you, in your career at some point in time? If you are female, please keep your hands up. Very, very interesting. When I went home last night, Faith, I picked up this week's copy of Financial Mail, which I hadn't read since the weekend. And there was an edition in the Financial Mail, which is a bit of a telephone directory called Women. And it, interestingly, was sponsored by Land Rover South Africa and Cliff Decker Hofmeyer. And if you get a chance, whether you are male or female, I would really recommend you get a copy of the Financial Mail this week, because there's a series of short articles that I think are extremely, extremely insightful. And one of those is by Baratang Mia, and on the subject of why tech needs women beyond coding. And how the technology industry has obviously been long perceived as a male-dominated industry, and that success was predicated by coding prowess. If you were a good coder, you would go far in the sector or in the industry. But we're in a moment in time at this point where, as we've been hearing during the Geshidocon, that AI is replacing and automating coding. So where does that leave the opportunities, do you think? And what potentially do you think are the new pathways?
So I think some of the feminine traits that we have, we spoke about collaboration, inclusivity. Inclusivity leads to, and vulnerability. I forgot vulnerability. So actually Brené Brown says vulnerability is the birthplace for innovation. So if I translate that for me, if I cannot be vulnerable, and vulnerable doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and tell you about all my problems and I'll just, have verbal diarrhea. Vulnerability for me means that you are open to constructive and respectful feedback, and that you are courageous to give constructive and respectful feedback. And so if you employ that into the new world of AI, where you have the unknown, we have uncertainty, when you bring your vulnerability, because it needs for you to be brave. So when you bring that to the table, when you bring your innovation to the table, when you bring your inclusivity, because when you're programming or when you're thinking about AI, you're not just going to include gender bias because you're thinking broader than a gender. When you bring all that in, it leads to better solutions, in my view.
Right. And I mean, that's very interesting, because I know you haven't seen the article, but Baratang highlights research by McKinsey that their research shows that companies with gender diverse leadership teams are 25% more successful in generating profit, above average profit in their businesses. So that seems to reinforce the point that you're making. Would you agree?
I do. I've seen a study also that speaks to the fact that when we just employ masculine energy, it leads to issues around excluding people. It leads to not getting to the better solution, and therefore you're not as effective as a leader, and therefore your company suffers and your bottom line suffers.
Right. So let me perhaps deal with one of the more sensitive issues that comes out of Barateng's article here, is that there are clearly barriers present within organizations, and your statistic from the CIO breakfast this morning indicates that very much. But what Barateng was saying is that while all women face hurdles in the tech sector, black women in particular confront compounded biases. What's been your experience?
All true. It's actually quite interesting for me as a woman. I have been in a situation where I have presented, if I can use a personal anecdote, I presented my IT budget. As a CIO, I presented my IT budget to the group executives, and among them was the CEO and the COO, and at the time I was a group executive as well. And in presenting it, one of the gentlemen in the room, because I was the only lady in the room, one of the gentlemen in the room said, "You're worse than my wife. You just want money."
Oh.
And I wondered what he would say if I said you're worse than my husband. But I'd been present in all and it's a really great person. So as an individual, I like him. He's a lovely person. And I don't even think he realized what that showed in terms of his unconscious bias.
Right.
But I mean, have you ever presented your budget and somebody says you're worse than my wife?
No.
So those are the kind of things that we deal with as women. And there are so many barriers that you learn to, or let me talk about me. I learned to bring more of my masculine energy to the table. I still like to be authentic, so I'm still going to come with my pink dress, and my high heels and the nails and stuff. So I still do a lot of the authenticity in terms of female and my female energy. But I've learned to be a little more masculine, and what that meant for me is I would, again, be having to present either a strategy or a budget, and I'm really sick, like absolutely sick, like diarrhea type of sick, excuse the TMI, and you need to be really close to a bathroom, but I'm standing there and I'm going to present it because I wouldn't want to be seen as a weak female. I would go through a divorce and not tell my colleagues that I'm going through a divorce because I didn't want every conversation to end up in, you see, she's going through stress, and so that's why she's being the way she is now, if I was in a position where I was disagreeing with a certain point. So there's these unconscious biases that people have, and I developed coping mechanisms. Are they right? I don't think so. Are they wrong? Maybe not either. I mean, is there right or wrong? I don't know, but those were my coping mechanisms.
But how does that affect your well-being, though, when you're actually putting on a facade and having to keep up an appearance that clearly, if you're not well, you're not well, whether you're male or female. But how does that affect your physical and your mental
and emotional well-being? So what I've learned over the years, because that happened many years ago, what I've learned over the years is that feminine energy is more than how I dress and what I look like. And feminine energy is about being authentically me and being true to me. So when I'm not well, to voice not well. So I have already said to somebody that I'm not feeling safe in this environment. And when it was a strategy type session, and so I said it to the group, and I was also one of 3 females in a group of 12. And you could see like kind of the double takes that people had, because how could I say and voice that I'm not feeling safe? But I started to own who I was and feel secure in who I was. And so it did mean that I worked really hard at building my self-esteem, my self-worth, and I worked really hard at being emotionally healthy. Because when you're emotionally healthy, you can say, right now in this space, I'm not good to do this. You know, one of the things I heard, one of my previous company was Eskom, I was the CIO there, and one of our board members, Dr. Claudel van Eck, she spoke to some women at a conference, and she was talking about masculine and feminine energy. And one of the things that really struck me when she spoke about it was she said that we all have it, obviously, but there's the negative portions, or when you're unwell, when you're emotionally unwell, you show up in your negative traits of masculine and feminine energy. And what that does is it creates toxicity. And so it stuck with me so much that about a year or so ago, I fell ill, and I felt, and I was booked for like 2 weeks, and because you have to unlearn those patterns, right? My coping mechanisms. And so I was like, oh, but my team, I need to be there. And I just needed to tell myself that it is better for them when I get there that I am well.
Right.
And that I don't walk in creating a toxic environment. And so when I had that conversation with myself, and I had to have the conversation, then only did I give myself permission to get well.
I mean, it's so amazing to hear you say what you're saying and to describe the toxicity, the feminine and male energy cycle. When we were talking and preparing for this discussion together, we started talking, if you don't mind, about, without trivializing it, about one of the great examples that you and I have seen, which was the Barbie movie. And I'm very interested to just check again with our audience, how many people have seen the Barbie movie? Just to raise your hands. If you're male, please keep your hands up. Well done, well done. Okay, clearly our Geshidons, I just want to tell you, you're missing out. And if you want to do it just principally from a educational and commercial perspective, would it surprise you to know that the largest grossing movie ever in history from a female director is Barbie, the movie? It grossed $1.5 billion. Maybe I'll just ask the men, how many of you have seen the Oppenheimer movie? Oh, there we go. Well done. Clearly I won't ask the question, who saw the Barbenheimer, the double feature, because they came out at the same time. I've seen both movies, not a Barbenheimer, but on 2 different days. But I would say that the Barbie movie is much more telling. And the story about an existential crisis in a world of virtual reality and a world of real reality that's captured there. I mean, what did you pick up when you saw the movie, Faith?
It was quite interesting. So after we spoke, I went to re-watch it because I'd watched it on a flight one day, and so I thought, let me re-watch. It was really interesting. It was interesting to see the power imbalances. It was like, yay, go women, right? At the beginning. But it was also toxic, in my view. And then it swapped around and it was still toxic. And then added to that, to your point, was the dynamic of the real world versus the plastic world, if you want. But also the creation of a female toy. I'm saying female because we shouldn't attach gender to things, but a female toy being created by a male,
Yes.
right? And with an impression, and it was actually quite interesting because they showed all the Barbies that they'd had at the end of the movie. If you've seen it, they show all the Barbies that they'd had over the years. And like, for example, they showed the pregnant Barbie, and then they had discontinued the pregnant Barbie.
That's right, yeah. Only one.
And they felt like, no, that was not appropriate. So
Yes.
why isn't it appropriate when a child sees their mother pregnant? Why isn't it appropriate?
There's so many interesting parallels in the movie, and the fact that you say that there are many Barbies, and each Barbie has a prestigious job, and is a caricature of that job. And the Kens, there are many Kens, and the Kens in the movie start off basically as beach bums, and Barbie Land is led by the Barbies. And there's a sudden role reversal, and the Kens take over, and Barbie Land collapses. And Barbie has to go to the real world to go and reconnect and reestablish. And I really do think, and I'm serious about this, everybody, that it is well worth watching the movie at this point in time. Because as Bias introduced at the beginning, this existential crisis that we can see in the world, the onslaught of technology at such a rapid change that's occurring, and how human beings are reacting to that. And I'd love to hear from you your view on how females versus males are, in your view, are responding, or are they Barbies and Kens? Are there parallels, or are there other things?
Do you know what was interesting for me about the movie is when the Kens started to run the Barbie world, the Barbies who had these powerful positions. So the one was a president, the other one was a nuclear physicist, I think, and the other one was a medical doctor. And so they had these powerful, intelligent positions. But what was so interesting was when the Kens started to rule the world, those Barbies started to dim their lights.
Yes.
And then I wondered to myself, to your question about are there Barbies and Kens, are there some of us, females or males, I guess, who are dimming our lights, who are dimming who we are to make others feel comfortable in their leadership? Because in digital transformation, what you do need is you need the inclusivity and the collaboration. So you need to hear and listen to the different views. But if you're in a toxic environment where there's leadership speaks and you listen, which is kind of what the Barbie world was about. So, because the Kens had seen the Barbies model that as well, right? And they'd gone to the real world and saw what men were modeling in the real world. But if you are in a situation where leadership is your will, you don't have a voice and you feel like you don't have a voice, or you dim your light so that you can make them feel comfortable, then unfortunately we're missing out on what could be really great solutions, solving real great problems, or creating real business opportunities that ultimately affect the bottom line.
And I love the way you describe the two worlds and what is essentially, and this is why I think it's well worth. It's a very entertaining movie, and it's I have no shares or no interest, I want to tell you, but just watch the movie, watch it again if you've watched it before. It's only 2 years old at this point, but the matriarchal society of Barbie Land versus the patriarchal society of the real world, and how they clash and how they eventually come together. I think if we are going to see progress in the digital age, we need to recognize that feminine intelligence is going to be a key part of forging that path forward to achieve success.
And can I just say, so I'm sorry, spoiler alert, but at the end of the movie, it was so interesting how they used feminine energy to overpower the masculine energy. Because masculine energy has like this one focus and goal, and that's what we do. Whether it's sports, whether it's a goal we're moving towards in business, that's what and we just focused on this, and you don't even see what's happening in the world. And that's all the Barbies did. They just gave them a focus that was outside of the voting focus, which was ultimately going to turn things around. And the Kens were so busy focusing on that they lost track of time, lost track of everything, and before they knew it, Barbie was owned again, right?
Yeah.
But it's leveraging that feminine intelligence. And I think if I could speak to maybe the males in the room, if it's okay, I think that as males, and I've not been a male, also don't really want to be, but if I can kind of guess where you're at, that sometimes it's so difficult for a male to show feminine energy,
Right.
because it's not been celebrated
Yeah.
in how businesses have run. But if you actually just, there's some feminine energy inside of you, and if you actually just leverage that feminine energy, you could take over Barbie.
Well, there you go. The last thing to share from a Barbie movie perspective, it did go up for various Academy Awards. It won one award for Best Original Song, which is a song by Billie Eilish, which I think you know as well. The song was called What Was I Made For? And it's a very important question, I think, for our Geshidoners in the room to ask. And at the end of the song, Billie Eilish ends with, I don't know how to feel. And I think that's very appropriate for the Geshidons in the room, to your point that actually men struggle to connect with their feelings and express those feelings. Would you agree?
I would, and I think that it's a beautiful song. I love the song. So I think that in the world of uncertainty where we're at, it's hard when you attach who you are to what you do, which I think is something that is part of our masculine energy that we have, is our who is our do. When that happens and there's uncertainty, then suddenly you don't know how to feel and you don't know your place, because the whole movie through they're looking for their place. Their place used to be this. It's no longer that. So what does that mean? And so I think that if you are rooted in a purpose,
right,
and you understand, and your purpose is not wrapped in your job, in a title, and if I can be as bold to say, it's not wrapped in a role. It's not I'm a mother. That's not your purpose. But if you understand the purpose that you as an individual are made for, and if you don't, there's ways that you can do. You just get involved in things, or that thing that irritates you the most. That's probably tightly linked to your purpose. And so getting into that, I know I used to be irritated with how education happened, and then realized that we could do some additional work with children. But it's to really root yourself in your purpose, to become really self-aware, you know, and just have like a hard conversation with yourself, and then to ensure that you take care of yourself.
right.
Because if you're not taking care of yourself, somebody else is going to feel that toxicity.
Wonderful. Faith, it's been so fantastic to talk to you again. I've really enjoyed, and I could talk to you for a lot longer. The screen is flashing at me. If I can wrap up just with the final words from Baratang, because I think it just really emphasizes what you've shared today. The next decade of technological advancement, from quantum computing to climate tech, requires women's full participation. Women don't need to fit the old tech mold. They need to reshape it, whether through product design that considers diverse users, AI ethics that prevent harm, or business models that prioritize sustainability. Our perspectives create better technology for all. Faith, thank you very much.